Hey, fantasy football friends. Okay, so let's talk wide receivers for week one. My favorite matchups, well, my very favorite of the week is no longer happening because of the hurricane. As you've probably heard, the Miami and Tampa Bay game has been postponed to week 11 because Hurricane Irma is causing some problems. So stay safe out there, my Florida friends, and I'm hoping that it'll pass you by and this will all be just an exercise in frustration. So, but my favorite would have been Mike Evans versus Miami, but since he's not playing, we'll move on. My favorite then becomes Crabtree and Cooper versus Tennessee. Tennessee gave up the 31st most points last year to wide receivers, and I like the Raiders offense. I like what Derek Carr is going to do, and he's actually one of my top 5 matchups this week as well. So I think that they are going to combine for some damage there for that Tennessee game. So Crabtree and Cooper, I think you can feel good starting either one of those guys, or both if you have them. I love Antonio Brown versus Cleveland because it's Cleveland. I love Julio Jones versus Chicago because it's Chicago. Another really great one that I like this week, Doug Baldwin versus Green Bay. Green Bay gave up the 32nd amount of points to wide receivers last year. That's pretty bad. So, and Baldwin's really the only wide receiver on the Seahawks that I like. So I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity there. And I also like Terrell Pryor versus Philly. Philly has a great defense. Their pass defense, not so good. Gave up 30th most points last year to fantasy wide receivers. So those are my top wide receivers. Let's talk about tight ends real quick too. Tight ends, again, one of my favorite tight ends this week, Cameron Brate versus Miami. Save him for week 11. I also like Delaney Walker versus Oakland. I think that'll be a good matchup. Zach Ertz versus Washington. Greg Olsen versus San Francisco. And Zach Miller versus Atlanta. Atlanta gave up the 26th most points to tight ends last year. So those are guys that I think you're really going to want to start, especially Zach Miller. I think that's one's out of the blue there. And that might not be one you're looking at, but I think he's going to give us a good amount of points this week. The two I don't like, I love Jordan Reed. I don't like him this week versus Philly. This week versus Philly, they only gave up, they were number 2 against tight ends last year. And with Reed and Davis splitting time there, and Reed still coming back. And I also do not like Eric Ebron versus the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals were number 1 last year versus tight ends. So I think that Stafford just got that big paycheck. He has too many other options to go to. So do not start Eric Ebron versus the Arizona Cardinals. Until next week, I'm Fantasy Girl.